Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of Azure Flash News. On today's episode, we're going to learn about Bicep, a new domain-specific language that makes it easy to author infrastructure templates for Azure. Rick, how's it going today, buddy?
It's going well. Lots of
Yeah.
good news coming out of Minnesota. Lots of things happening. So yeah, very good.
Yeah, that's right. And all kinds of stuff happening and all kinds of new stuff happening for us, new stuff for us to show people.
Absolutely. So we've got a really good, I'll say some really meaty subject matter today. But what I want to get to before that is kind of explain how we got here, right? So
That's right.
back in the day when we started with Azure, we started with what's called ASM, so Azure Service Manager, okay, or Service Management, depending on who you are. And basically that was the mechanism to deploy things to the Azure control plane, which then, of course, in turn, basically provisioned resources. Now, there was a few shortcomings. It was slow, it was clunky, it wasn't parallelized, so you couldn't provision resources in parallel. And from a I'll say language perspective, I think there was some disparities between different languages, right? Some of them had full support, some of them had quasi full support. So roughly 2015, 2016 timeframe, we basically said, look, we're going to reimagine this. In fact, we'd been working on it forever, I'm sure. But unfortunately, it's going to cause a little pain for the customers. So along came ARM, Azure Resource Manager Templates, which is a JavaScript object notation or JSON, and basically replaced a lot of the clunkiness and performance issues that were surrounding ASM. Okay, so now when you go into the portal, you'll see things that are flagged as classic, right, which is ASM, or it doesn't have an indicator that's classic, and of course that's ARM based, right? So
that's right.
So now we've got this cool Azure Resource Manager template, these JSON templates, and they're really kind of composed of 4 different sections, right? So you have parameters, you have variables, you have resources, and you have outputs, right? So in a nutshell, those 4 sections, it's kind of like writing COBOL. And I totally just dated
Hopefully it's
myself.
a little bit more interesting writing COBOL.
I totally
I've done it before.
So not unlike writing COBOL, you have these dedicated sections, right, where you're going to take input parameters, you're going to declare and use variables, you're going to have the resources that you provision, and then you're going to have the output. So for example, let's say you deployed a VM and a NIC with a static IP address. You may want to reference that static IP address downstream, maybe in another template, or maybe you're doing a DevOps pipeline or something, GitHub Actions. As an output, you can actually put that IP address in there and use that downstream if you set it to a DevOps like variable type of thing. So ARM templates are great. They're a great step in the right direction, but we still think they're a little not intuitive. They're still a little bit challenging in that, you don't necessarily get the full depth and breadth of a language when you have a JSON ARM template, right? I can go into Notepad and whip something out, awesome, but unless I know all the syntax and all the, the nomenclature, the structure, it's still not quite there. So, introducing Bicep.
Yeah, and of course, Bicep is, ARM, it's Bicep. It's kind of a dad joke.
Little bit of a dad joke. Little bit.
But that's okay. We'll go with it.
It may actually
but it's
stand
a domain
thing, right?
Or
do you think it really is a really bad dad joke?
No, it's just Bicep. That's pretty sad. But, and actually, I thought people were going to kind of like, it wasn't going to stick, but it did. So we'll get some more looking at it here. So we just wanted to make it easy, super easy to author these templates. We get that feedback quite a lot that ARM templates are kind of hard to author. It makes sense that we use JavaScript. It's the payload for a REST API. And of course, the payload for a REST API is JavaScript, JSON, JavaScript object notation. And so that doesn't need to change. That needs to stay the same. But we needed to add on a DSL, a domain-specific language. So let's start to take a look at that.
Yep. And one of the confusing things is not only is it a domain-specific language, but it's a declarative language.
Yes, it is.
So just when you thought you had all the D's figured out, apparently there's more than one.
That's right. So the first thing we want to do is I just thought I'd show everybody the Bicep project in GitHub.
Yep, which is open source.
It is open source and it's available to everybody. And you'll notice here that even there's a bunch of examples here. If you go into docs, and then if you go into examples, which I clicked on here, you'll actually notice there's actually quite a few examples here.
That's really cool.
Yeah. There's some examples. But also there is information. Actually, I'll go back one more. There's actually information here on how to the goals, what it is, non-goals.
I like non-goals.
That's yeah, right. Yeah, non-goals.
It's like
build a general purpose language. No, that is not what we're trying to do.
Totally.
But then there's also why it's better, and also if you want to contribute, there's information on contributions. So and all of the issues with Bicep are out here. You'll notice we're on version 0.2. We're kind of calling 0.3 sort of the first production ready version, because we're gonna promise to stop breaking people. And actually, I was just talking to somebody on the Bicep issues about a breaking change they're about to introduce before version 0.3. So, but it says alpha, and I think we're a little farther along than alpha.
Okay.
But if you want to get started with Bicep, it takes two things. One is the command line. Okay, and so you'll notice here I've gone into the release in GitHub right here, this release.
Yep.
And there's lots of releases, but you might as well get the latest one. And there's some release notes about what's in it right here. So here's so update documentation, mad missing examples, stuff like that. And then down here are the actual payloads. And so you'll notice here right here is the Bicep setup Win64 for Windows and also OS X. And I think they're actually providing this over Homebrew also if you're a Mac user.
Oh, right on. I was going to say, I also see Linux. I see, this is awesome.
Cross-platform. And then this right here, this is something you actually don't need. This one is the VS Code extension, and you can actually get that out of the marketplace. So there's really no need to grab this here. But I wanted people to see how to get this. Just download it and install it. And I think that's it for there. So let me actually switch on over to VS Code. Now, hopefully everybody's familiar with VS Code. Rick, do you use VS Code?
I think everybody in the world uses VS Code these days.
Yeah, I think it's like the most popular code editor at like Facebook and Google, stuff like that.
Yeah, so which is very awesome. Popular. Very cool.
And it has an extensibility model, right?
Yeah.
So that means we can add extensions. And if you go down to here to this little brick thing here, and it shows you what's installed. I don't have a lot installed, except I do have the Bicep extension installed. And so you'll notice here you can actually search for Bicep and it'll bring it up. Now I've actually already installed it, but right here you'll just click install and it'll load up. And what that means is that now I can actually write Bicep templates in my code editor. So let's take a look and see how that works.
Please.
So let's create main.bicep. And then we're ready to start going. Now you'll recall that it's saying that it's a Bicep language.
Yep.
And then I can start to say things like resource, and you'll actually notice that it actually noticed what I was doing. And then and then this is gonna be like a variable. So let's make a storage account. What should I call the variable in here? How about my storage, maybe?
I like it.
All right. Now the next thing is it's going to bring up Intellisense, right? Intellisense, yay!
I know, right?
Yeah. So now
because I can't imagine typing that. I'll tell you that right now.
That's right. And so what this is it is going to start giving me the list of resource providers.
Love it.
And these are all of the different APIs essentially that I can hit in ARM. And if I want to create a storage account, this is the one I use. Microsoft.storage accounts. And it actually even has the API version in it.
Yeah.
And now, if we're thinking of this like a variable, I made a mistake here. Now, if we're doing pair programming, you're supposed to catch me here, Rick.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'll forgive you this time.
Now, you notice, squigglies, though.
What's that?
You did get the squigglies.
I did get the squigglies. It tells me. Now, you'll notice here that it says, we have a problem here. Yep. And it's waiting, and I'll hover over just so people can see. It's expecting an equals, and that's because essentially we're declaring a variable called my storage. We're giving it a little bit of information about what type it is, if you will, and then we're going to start doing it. Now, the way that we declare these things is in squarely brackets, and now we start to get something interesting. First of all, we get a squiggly under here, and it says, "Hey, wait a minute! This resource called my storage is missing these properties: kind, location, name, and SKU," and that's because those are the required fields for a storage account.
So without those, it's like, well, we don't know enough to deploy this resource or to convert this into an ARM template.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And so what we're going to do is now we can actually use Intellisense, and we're going to use control space, and boom, here comes Intellisense. And then notice here it says depends on identity, and then here kind. You see that it says required right here?
And so these should look familiar if you're steeped in ARM templates, right? Depends on, obviously. I mean, all these things should look relatively familiar.
That's right. So we're going to give it a location. we are going to give it, and you can also hit the space bar and get the Intellisense. We're going to give it a name. And this is the actual name of the resource that it's going to be in Azure. So we're going to call it storage MG, maybe. And then we get another one here. Let's see, it said SKU, I think, right?
Yep.
And then SKU is an object. You can see here it's suggesting that I need these curly brackets.
Yeah.
So then now, and then you can see SKU is even squirrelied, right? And it says, hey, name is required. So then I can type name, and you can see that Intellisense started to come up.
Yeah.
Right? Name.
Yeah.
And then I get an enum. Now this is beautiful.
Love it.
Okay? Because now you don't have to remember what all these shortcuts are. So then you can say, I can say standard LRS. Just
so locally redundant storage.
And then it still gives me a squiggly. What am I forgetting? Oh, kind. So now I need to go down here and say kind. And then look at that. Look at all these kinds. I can say storage v2.
Yeah.
Hit tab. Now you can see here I've kind of got a little bit of a messy template here. I've got my columns are a little out of whack. Now I can just hit the format code shortcut and it formats my code. Did anybody catch that? So I can move this way over here. On Windows, it's Shift Alt F, and it fixes my code. Isn't that beautiful?
It is, especially if you have OCD like I do, and you can't walk away until the code is like formatted perfectly, or near perfectly. And of course that's relative, but yeah, it drives me crazy.
So let's take a look at what happens next. So so great, I've got this Bicep file. Now what am I going to do with it? Well, you can compile it or transpile. It depends on what people think. But we can say bicep build main.bicep.
And that's just the name of the file that basically you're telling it compile or to your point transpile, depending on what camp you're from.
Yeah, and I can even say bicep minus help or dash, depends on who you are. I know sometimes give me a hard time about that. And then we can even go in here and say, you can see bicep build options.
Yep.
And you can see what the options are. There's not many yet.
In
the newest versions, you can actually decompile an existing ARM template into Bicep.
Oh, that's cool. I love reverse engineering. I'm a fan.
So in other words, if you have existing ARM templates, you can reverse engineer them into Bicep. But now you'll notice since I did my build, it created main.json. So let's take a look at this here.
Right on.
What did it build for me? Okay, how about this? There's my ARM template. And for those of you who are already familiar with ARM templates, this will look very familiar.
It looks very familiar.
Yes, it does. And so you can see here, it gave me my name, storage MG, and gave me my location, and the name and kind.
Name and kind, absolutely.
So this is good. This is good, but we can do even better. Let's say that don't forget you can do that too, right? You can have folding. It is a code editor.
Collapse, that's right. Collapse your code.
So let's say I wanted to pass in a parameter to my ARM template or to my storage account.
Which gives it always, right? This is about the most common a scenario as you can think of.
That's right. And let's say I wanted to pass in like a uniqueifier, a little short segment that I would put on the prefix as a prefix to my name. So because that way I know for sure my storage account name is unique because of course the storage account name has to be unique across the world actually.
Right.
So I can type in param, and then the next thing I get is parameter. And then I have to give it a name. I say my param. And then I have to tell it what kind it is. And then I say that it's equal to, I could make it equal to nothing.
You could default it to a value. You can set it equal. Yeah, you kind of have options there, right?
Right. Yeah. So I can give it a default value. And if I put in this, then that would be the default value.
Right.
But we're going to give it a blank default value. Now, how do we do string concatenation in Bicep? Watch this.
Oh, I like it.
You actually
this looks familiar.
Yeah, this looks like string interpolation, doesn't it? if you're familiar with C#.
Yeah.
And you'll notice here, as soon as I started typing, Intellisense notices that I have a parameter called myParam, and I can finish it just like that.
Nice.
So now I have my name to be myParam storage MG. So let's take a look at how that looks like. Bicep build main.bicep. Okay. So then this rebuilds main. There we go, it's done. So we can go back over to here, and you'll notice now that it says I have a parameter, my param, default value of quote quote, and then here's the name format. Now, of course, this thing is saying that it's longer than 24 characters, but that's not really true. This expression is longer than 24 characters.
The
of course,
literal interpretation is longer, but it...
Yes. But actually, it's really going to be storage MG plus this parameter here, which will not be more than 24 characters. So see, we're already getting a lot of value here out of getting something that understands a little bit more on what's going on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see here. What else do we want to do? Let's try and let's actually rename this here. So we're going to rename this. Let's show you one more thing here.
Okay.
Or actually, I tell you what, let's do one more thing here first. Let's go here and let's do an output.
Okay. I was going to ask about it, but...
My output is a string, and it is equal to my storage dot, and then let's say properties dot. Rick, are you on board yet?
Oh, I'm so on board. I mean, and I haven't played with it for a while, so I'll be honest with you. I'm seeing some of this stuff for the first time, and I am absolutely giddy with what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and so you can actually say that I want, I don't know.
Literally anything in this list is an option, right?
Yeah, you can just say I want the encryption value to be output.
Actually, you know what you could do is, so the name is a concatenation of the input parameter plus, if you passed out the name, that would give you the actual name. So if you were to point to the storage account downstream, you would have that name as the output of the concatenation, right?
Yeah, so I could actually do this too. I could actually take this and copy that to the clipboard, and I could then output that. And so, or if
you didn't want to have it in two places, you could say my storage dot properties dot name, right?
I could also do this. I could do a variable.
Oh, here we go.
Storage name string is equal to, and set this. Actually, cut that.
I like it. Smarter, not harder.
No, sorry.
Oh.
Okay, and then now we can say that this is equal to storage name, which of course doesn't require this anymore.
Right.
And now we can go here and put that as storage name.
Love it.
Oops. I need to put it in quotes.
There you go.
There we go.
But see, it's telling you all that, it's warning you of all this stuff that, hey, this isn't quite right, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and so like this is another thing that people can do. Like if you want to rename the symbol, I can call this storage NM. Right?
Yeah, if you've got a naming convention. Yeah.
Now you'll notice here that it'll actually do them all. So now they all change names because it actually understands this. And this is because this is a regular programming language now.
Yeah.
So it's really great to have outputs.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see if we can change this here. Rename this to storage.bicep.
Okay.
And then we're going to create a new main bicep. And then in here, we're going to create what is actually a module.
So this is where we're able to actually reference.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And what is it telling me here? It's saying, okay, it's expecting the path. And the path is just storage.bicep. Whoop. Right. And then the last thing is it's saying equals. And then I can do this. Now there's one required field here, and it's called name.
I was going to say, I bet it's name.
Yeah, and you could say, and it turns out, I tell you what, I'm actually going to show people what this is.
Cool.
So let's actually do bicep build main.bicep.
Okay.
So now we have a main bicep file that actually references another bicep file and uses it as a module. So that means we can start reusing our code. So let's go look at what we got out of here.
Oh, that's huge. The modularity piece is absolutely huge.
That's right. And so now this ARM template is starting to look kind of complicated here, but let me show you what we're doing here. We're actually deploying a resource of type deployment. So this is a nested deployment for those of you who have done ARM template nested deployments. And we actually do have to give the nested deployment a name. That won't show up in your Azure infrastructure afterwards. It's just a name for the nested deployment. But inside that nested deployment, here, of course, is the storage account. Now, what you really care about as a cloud builder, a cloud dev, is that now
builder of clouds.
A builder of clouds is I have a module definition that references this module here.
Love it.
Yes, I do too. And now one other thing we can do here is we can actually say this is equal to. You
can make a dog bark in this code? That's awesome.
Isn't that amazing? So cool. Don't you just love the dogs?
I do.
So now we can actually create a parameter, except we're going to add some allowed fields, and there, of course, it's an array. And I'm going to say the allowed are Rick, because you're awesome, Rick.
Okay.
And Mark, because I'm not quite as awesome. And what this does is this builds in this allowed parameters. Now, what's magical about this is that we actually go back to our main.bicep, and you'll notice here now it's saying, hey, there's a problem. That's right. And so now it's saying you require params. The reason I require params is that now I have to actually provide one. And so I can say params. And then once again, I can ask for Intellisense. Oh, it's called my param. I don't even need to know what it's called. And then the enum that's of allowed values are right there for me.
So this is basically where you want to scope the options for say the deployment to accept a subset, right? So for example, maybe it's region, maybe it's location, right? You can only go to East US, or you can only go to this location. Oh, it's got to be one of these options, otherwise, boom, it breaks.
That's right. And so you could just literally provide a list of options for somebody, for their location, for their storage types, VM size. That's right.
Yeah.
And so you could actually have a VM Bicep module that has all of the parameters and all of the allowed values for people to use, and then they just declare a main.bicep and start referencing their modules.
Dude, this is awesome.
Yeah. It is very, very cool. I'm really looking forward to being able to continue to show people Bicep, how to use it, what's coming up, stuff like that.
Seriously.
So I'm really thrilled. I'm going to actually go back to here. Oh, here. No.
There you go.
There we go.
Love it.
So it's been great showing people Bicep. One more thing I'll say is that we're at version 0.2. When we get to 0.3, which is going to be kind of the end of next month, that's when we're considering it sort of enterprise ready. We're not done, but it's done enough that people can start using it. What else do people need to know?
So are we still considering a preview though, in terms of like SLAs or guarantees or anything like that, or are we actually considering it non-preview but not production?
Yeah, I would say that as of the version 0.3, you will be able to get Microsoft support.
Then that's what matters.
Yeah, and so I don't think we'll call it GA because we're not finished.
Sure.
But it will be done enough for us to support somebody, and you'll be able to open up a support ticket. So what I would say is start using it. Start getting to know it right now. Absolutely. Because it is very valuable. You'll find that you can just write ARM templates just in text, just the whole thing. It's really, really cool. And one more thing, if you come across a Bicep file where you declare something and it gives you a squiggly because it says, or if it doesn't give you a squiggly where you know there's a required item, go ahead and whenever you find errors like that, please go to the repo and open up an issue.
Submit that ticket, submit that issue. Yeah, please, because that's what everybody wins when we catch things like that.
That's right. And those are small fixes. Those are just Swagger docs that we need to get updated. So feel free to do that if you come across that. So
awesome. Well, okay. So is that kind of a wrap on the Bicep piece, Mark?
I think it is. I think it's a good
thing. And don't get me wrong. That was awesome.
Yeah. And people, the go-do is go keep up, go try out Visual Studio Code with the Bicep extension, go download the command line, and you'll be able to work this into your pipelines here pretty soon. So go get that and see what you think.
Totally. And now, so there's probably going to be some questions about this, Mark. Now, if people have questions about Bicep, how do they get a hold of you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at mgarner, would be just fine. Or you can just email me. You can email me on my Microsoft email address, mgarner@microsoft.com. And Rick, what about you? Where can people catch you?
Just call Mark. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Per usual, you can reach me at Rick, W-E-Y, at Microsoft.com. Or, of course, I am absolutely monitoring our Azure Flash News Twitter handle. So please, please subscribe. If you're not following us on Twitter, follow us. And if you're not subscribed on YouTube, please subscribe and like. We absolutely would love the feedback. And hopefully you guys really, this is of interest to you, because I think, as we mentioned in prior shows, we were changing our format more to be more hands-on demo, get started with X kind of capabilities. So this is an awesome example of getting started with X capability.
Yeah.
Well done.
And we've had some other people offer to do
awesome.
well-architected framework maybe, or talk about the cloud adoption framework. We have some data stuff coming up on the show after the new year. So
we got some good stuff.
We have some great stuff coming. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you'll know whenever something comes up and whenever we upload. So,
dude, that's a great point. Yeah, that'll keep you abreast of all the cool things that we're talking about in Azure.
That's right.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for the demonstration. That was fantastic. And
You're
to
welcome.
you, the viewer, thank you so much for viewing. We appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to join us on our Azure journeys. And per usual, we always look forward to having these conversations. But until the next time we do, please keep your fingers on your sanitized keyboard and your mask face up in the cloud.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a good day.